Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, Queen Elizabeth's casket makes its final journey through Scotland. As funeral preparations are underway, we'll have developments. Plus, there's a new animated series on the Disney-owned network FXX called Little Demon. We'll take a look at the controversy and some major warnings for viewers. And Lifemark, the film based on an inspirational true story celebrating adoption, forgiveness, and love, scores big at the box office premiere weekend. We sit down to talk with the actor and producer Kirk Cameron and director Stephen Kendrick about the powerful new film.
This is a movie that is coming out at an unbelievably providential moment in history. I mean, who would have thought that Roe v. Wade would be gone? Let's say that again. Roe v. Wade is gone.
Then later, Skillet frontman John Cooper talks about a time he was told to disassociate from Christianity in order to become truly successful in his career.
He's a fairly big mover and shaker in the industry, and basically the story goes him saying, hey, you guys could be the next biggest band in the world, but you have to stop talking about Jesus.
See how it became a defining moment for him to stay the course in his Christian walk. All these stories and more coming up next from the CBN Newsroom.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin this half hour with King Charles III and the Queen Consort receiving condolences today at Westminster from the House of Lords and the House of Commons as the Queen's casket makes its final journey through her beloved Scotland. Dale Hurd is on the story.
Britain's new King and Queen Consort met with members of Parliament before Charles III addressed the body this morning.
As I stand before you today, I cannot help but feel the weight of history which surrounds us.
Then traveling back to Scotland to join other members of the royal family for a procession to St. Giles Cathedral, where the Queen's casket will lie in state so the people of Scotland can pay their respects. The Queen's final journey began Sunday as the glass-windowed hearse left her Balmoral estate and traveled through the Scottish countryside.
Just important to say goodbye. She's been on the throne for a long time. So, yeah, it means a lot. Sorry.
Thousands lined her route to say goodbye.
She loved Ballater, she loved Royal Deeside, and we loved her as well.
Some threw flowers. There was even an honour guard of tractors.
It was the farming community doing their part to show their appreciation for what she'd done for agriculture.
Then a dozen horses paid tribute to the Queen as an equestrian.
We're part of history.
Charles is now head of state to 14 other nations known as realms of the Commonwealth, including Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, and a host of Caribbean and Pacific islands. But that may be changing. Antigua and Barbuda and Jamaica are now set to vote on whether to remove the British monarch as their head of state and become republics.
We are moving on as an independent, developed, prosperous country.
Barbados became independent earlier this year. The Queen's funeral will be held in Westminster Abbey on Monday, September 19. President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden have accepted an invitation to attend. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Yesterday marked the 21st anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks. People across the country took time to remember with tributes and pleas to never forget. Relatives of the victims gathered at the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and a Pennsylvania field, all places the attacks occurred. President Biden spoke at the Pentagon ceremony, while his wife spoke at the Pennsylvania event. Vice President Kamala Harris was at the New York ceremony. President Biden says the U.S. would continue to root out terrorism. Now, the latest in the war on Ukraine. The war has been ongoing for more than 200 days, and momentum is shifting as Ukrainian forces are gaining ground and reclaiming Russian-held territories in a wide-ranging counteroffensive. Ukrainian officials say more than 1,000 square miles of land was taken back in Ukraine's second-largest city of Kharkiv. This is due to Ukraine's escalating attacks, which is forcing Russians to retreat. Russia responded Sunday with attacks on Ukraine's infrastructure, which led to power outages and a power station fire that killed one person. For the first time, Israeli archaeologists have uncovered rare pieces of ivory from the Old Testament era of Israel's first temple. As Julie Stahl reports now from Jerusalem, it provides more clues about what life was like during that ancient time.
These decorative pieces help experts continue to put together the historic puzzle of Jerusalem from more than 2,500 years ago.
We found a complete corpus of small ivory plates, inlays that used to decorate large wooden furnitures, for example, beds or doors or something like that. It's the first time that are found here in Jerusalem or in Judea.
The discovery of some 1,500 tiny pieces happened at the sprawling City of David dig site in the ruins of a large palatial building that would have been in use as far back as 800 BC.
And it means that Jerusalem was an important city, that the elite of Jerusalem were people of high rank, important enough to communicate with their peers at the elite of Assyria and other places in the empire.
Israel Antiquities Authority archaeologist Yiftach Shalev says the items were most likely made outside of Israel.
It's a very delicate art. You need to remember that ivory is most probably one of the most prestige and most expensive items in the world, more expensive than gold. And only few people knew how to work with it.
Shalev says it's not clear how the ivory pieces arrived in Jerusalem.
They might come as part of trade, or even more likely came as gift between peer polity interaction. Maybe one of the elite families in Assyria gave these as gift for the local elite or something like that.
Shalev says the structure where the tiny fragments were discovered is historic in its own right.
We're digging one of the largest structures from the First Temple period ever to be found in Jerusalem. It had 2 stories. We found the house destroyed. It was burnt in huge fire, most probably during the destruction of Jerusalem by the Babylonians in 586 BC.
Archaeologists also found seals in 15 broken jars that contained wine spiced with vanilla. Given these discoveries, Shalev says, it's clear the residents were part of elite Jerusalem and well connected to the royal family. Julie Stahl, CBN News, the City of David, Jerusalem.
Coming up, major warnings about a new animated series called Little Demon. Stay with us. Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. Warnings are emerging as Disney-owned network FXX releases a new animated series called Little Demons. Plus, recently, a Pennsylvania school district is allowing a Satanic temple host a back-to-school event later this month. This poses the question as to why Satanists seem to dominate the headlines. FaithWire.com's Billy Hallowell joins us now with more on these headlines. First, what is the synopsis of this new series on FXX?
Oh, it's a little disturbing. It's about a woman who's a witch who mates with Satan and gives birth to the Antichrist. That's essentially the baseline of this. And then, of course, Satan comes back to try to claim his daughter.
What are some running themes and storylines and images in the show?
Yeah, you're seeing witchcraft. And of course, they're putting this through a comedic lens, right? But you're watching this. There's a lot of violence. There's a lot of language. There's obviously themes that are theological in nature surrounding Satan and evil. And so a lot of violence. And so that's something to be really aware of outside of the occultic themes.
Are we seeing any pushback?
We're seeing a lot of pushback. There are a lot of people, 1 million moms, a lot of pastors, and a lot of people not just ranting about the series, but really worrying and warning not just adults, because this is a series that's geared toward adults, but the fact that it's animated and that kids are going to be attracted to it. So we're seeing a lot of theological warnings and a lot of warnings about the violence and language.
Turning now to the story about Satanists. It seems Satanists keep dominating the headlines. Recently, a school district in Pennsylvania giving the okay for a Satanic temple to hold a back-to-school event on September 24th. Can you break down what Satanists believe and what's happening here?
Yeah, this is a very confusing story because we're seeing the Satanic Temple. That's the main group we generally see in the headlines. And we're trying to figure out who are these people? What do they believe? And the assumption, I think, is that these are devil worshipers, right? In terms of people who believe the devil is real. What's interesting about Satanism is it's divided into 2 camps, a theological camp, Those are the people who do worship Satan, actually, as though he were God. And then there's this atheistic camp, and that's actually the Satanic Temple. They claim to not believe in Satan, believe it or not, even though they're out there with their Satanist clubs. They claim that they don't believe in anything, quote, supernatural. And so there's two camps there. Again, the theological camp is the one Christians are generally familiar with. That camp is very small. The predominant one, that's the camp that is atheistic in nature.
What can you tell us about this back-to-school event and what they're trying to do?
Yeah, they're trying to do these events all over the place. We've seen them do this again and again. They're trying to drum up, media support, it seems. They'll often deny that, but you'll see them, putting these events in schools. And I think the general pushback is, well, if Christians can do it, then others can do. We have the religious freedom to be present there. But again, these are theological atheists. I would say, you have to keep in mind, it doesn't matter whether you worship Satan or you don't. At the end of the day, you're still bringing attention to him as a Satanist organization.
Indeed. Looking ahead this week, what can we expect on FaithWire?
We're going to be looking at a number of stories. Joe Scarborough's comments about abortion will be one of them. We also sat down with Dr. Michael Brown to talk about his new book on Christians and politics.
All right, Billy Hallowell with FaithWire.com. Thank you so much. I want to remind you at home that you can catch FaithWire on the CBN News Channel. You can find it at 8:30 Eastern this evening. You can also download the CBN News app, and there you'll be able to watch it on demand. Still ahead, it's the power of adoption. That's the message behind the new film, Lifemark. We're going to go behind the scenes of that film next. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. Stay with us. Kirk Cameron and the Kendrick brothers' latest movie, Lifemark, scores big numbers at the box office premiere weekend. The film is based on the true story and deals with an issue very close to Kirk's heart, choosing adoption over abortion. Billy Hallowell spoke with Kirk Cameron and director Stephen Kendrick about the power of the film to move audiences and to motivate them to action.
God gave you to me and Mom as a gift, and you will always be our son.
I've always wondered if my biological parents think about me.
You want to talk to him?
I don't think he'd want to talk to me.
There's only one way to find out.
Is that your birth mom?
She wants to meet.
Lifemark, a new movie based on an incredible true story that celebrates the gift of life, comes from executive producers Kirk Cameron and the Kendrick brothers. Cameron believes the timing of the film's release on the heels of the U.S. Supreme Court's landmark abortion ruling is God-ordained.
This is a movie that is coming out at an unbelievably providential moment in history. I mean, who would have thought that Roe v. Wade would be gone? Let's say that again. Roe v. Wade is gone. Holy smokes. And now here's a movie that's coming on the heels of that Supreme Court decision that celebrates the value of life in the womb and the beauty of adoption.
Lifemark tells the story of 18-year-old David, whose comfortable world is tossed into chaos when his birth mom surprisingly reaches out to meet him. With his adoptive parents' support, David embarks on an inspirational journey to discover truths about his past. Lifemark highlights and celebrates the true power of adoption.
It's just a story that is full of heart and humor and action and adventure, and you see the impact that one life can have on so many.
It's also a deeply personal story for Cameron and for his family.
And I'm passionate about this because I have 4 adopted children. My wife, Chelsea, and I, we met and got married on the set of Growing Pains. We started this great big family by adopting our kids. Why did we do that? Well, my wife is herself an adopted child. So think about this. My wife was 1 doctor appointment away from not existing. And our 4 children were also this close to not existing. And if my wife hadn't been born, either would our 2 natural born children. So all 6 of our kids and my wife wouldn't be here if people didn't value their life while they were in the womb so that they could grow into these beautiful, amazing people that they are.
It's stories like Cameron's that executive producer Stephen Kendrick wants Christians to ponder more deeply as they confront abortion and live out the gospel.
I think the pro-life message that is beautifully interwoven into this story is really packaged in a beautiful adoption story. And I think the church has an amazing opportunity in our generation to not only support women in crisis pregnancies, but we need to practice what James 1:27 says, that pure religion is to also take care of the widows and the orphans. And having been an adopted father and seeing how amazing that can be, and knowing that God's heart is for the orphan, we're spiritually adopted when we place our faith in Christ. I think the church has an amazing opportunity to be the hands and feet of Jesus in our generation by reaching out and supporting adoption.
A lot of Christians adopt. Christian adoption rate is higher than the general public, but there's still a lot of work to be done, and most Christians are not adopting. So, what's your hope for the film when it comes to that particular facet of the life discussion?
This is a movie that is going to touch your heart in so many different ways. It's a 3 or 4 Kleenex movie. That's not a spoiler alert. It's just a little bit of a warning. You are going to be moved very deeply, and you're going to be inspired to action. I think this is one of those kairos moments in the history of the family of faith here in America, particularly, where we have an opportunity to do like God and embrace the subject of adoption, because I think it is the answer to the horrors of abortion.
Lifemark offers a powerful call to live out Christ's command to love God and love others, while also exploring the gift of adoption for children and families alike. This is Billy Hollowell for CBN News.
Lifemark is in theaters right now for a limited release Fathom event. You can find out where it's playing in your area and how to get tickets by going to cbnnews.com. Coming up, John Cooper from the Christian rock band Skillet shares a defining moment for him after being told to disassociate from Christianity. Plus, you've got your Monday motivation. Stay with us. Skillet frontman John Cooper is on fire for Christ, and he's not afraid to admit it. He says there was a time he was told to disassociate from Christianity if he wanted to become truly successful in his career. He talked to us about how that statement became a defining moment for him.
A lot of Christian pastors, influencers, artists begin to fall away from their faith and using all these various arguments that are like, no, I'm being more like Jesus by saying some new weird, apostate type, thing that is not actually more like Christ. But you know what I mean? It began to get tricky. Well, I was already prepared for that, and I had already been studying, and I was reading, trying to figure out where this stuff was coming from. So it was a very defining moment for me in which I knew that I cannot be silent about Christ. In fact, I need to be more vocal about Christ, because there's something happening here that's very evil when the devil says stuff that sounds like truth, but it's really not. That's when you're getting into dangerous territory.
And you can watch the entire interview by visiting us at cbnnews.com. It was a special treat for the Uvalde High School football team Sunday as they were guests of the Houston Texans as they took on the Indianapolis Colts. The Texans are seen sporting Uvalde Strong decals on the back of their helmets. The Coyotes were also featured on ESPN's College Game Day in a piece narrated by fellow Texan Matthew McConaughey. Time now for your Monday motivation. Here's a thought I'd like to offer as we begin a new week. Treat your dreams like a windshield and your memories like a rearview mirror. Your dreams should always be bigger than your memories. Memories are behind you. Dreams are ahead of you. And God promises that better is always coming. With that word, make today a marvelous Monday and be sure to have yourself a wonderful rest of the week. That will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. I want to remind you, you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel at any time, as well as online at cbnnews.com. We would love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today or any day. You can email us. The address is right there at the bottom of your screen, newswatch@cbn.com. We'd love for you to reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We certainly would love to hear from you. Hoping you'll join us again right back here next time. Make this a marvelous Monday. We look forward to seeing you right back here, same time tomorrow. Goodbye and God bless.